Welcome to Founder Tactics, a podcast about entrepreneurs and the communities that shape their journey. I am your host, Julia Lucidi. Today, we're joined by Don Campion, founder and president of Banyan Air Services, one of the most respected aviation operators in the country, based right here in South Florida. What started as a simple hangar in a small team has grown into a 110-acre, 24/7 aviation complex serving hundreds of aircrafts and connecting South Florida to the Bahamas, the Caribbean, and beyond. But Don's story goes far beyond aviation. He was raised in Nigeria as the son of medical missionaries. His early life was shaped by faith, resilience, and a lot of adventure as a young man growing up experiencing so many cultures. After moving to the United States and building his company, he discovered that the hospital his parents founded had fallen apart. Although he had no experience in the medical or construction fields, he started mobilizing partners, resources, and volunteers to rebuild the hospital. In this episode, we talk about entrepreneurship through the unique lens of faith and how a bold step to serve others can have an incredible impact on fulfilling your purpose. Before we get started, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to us on now. It's a tremendous help as we organically grow our listener community. All right, let's jump in. Don, thank you so much for making the time to be here. I know you have an incredibly busy schedule. I'm excited to share your story with our community and just dive into this incredible life story that you have. I think it could be a movie practically.
Well, thank you, Julia. It's a unique privilege to come down and share with you what God's been doing in my life and the many blessings that we've had, my wife and I, and my early days of growing up. And to be able to share that is fun.
That's awesome. I wrestled a little bit with figuring out where to start because there's so much to your story. But I think that perhaps the best way to start is chronologically.
Okay.
So could you share a little bit about where you were born, who were your parents, a little bit about the beginning of your life?
Yeah, I have to say it is fairly unique. So I was born in Nigeria, which is in West Africa. My parents were Protestant missionaries. My father, a doctor, surgeon, and my mom, a nurse and midwife. And along with my three sisters, we were born in Nigeria to missionary parents. My parents were amazing people, super pioneers. In 1950, went out to the bush in southwest Nigeria, lived in a mud hut to then begin to create a hospital and eventually a college of nursing to accommodate and to help staff the hospital. Uh, we really were in the bush, 100 miles from any city, off the grid, no electricity, no water. So right from the very beginning, we, as pioneer missionaries, my parents then started to build all this infrastructure of wells for water and getting a diesel generator to start generating power and so on and so forth. And the same with the hospital. The hospital was just in a little mud building until they built a little bigger mud building, which was the beginning of the hospital called Egbe Hospital. And Egbe is the village in southwest Nigeria. So over those years, um, it was wonderful, really growing up in nature there, very close to the villagers in the village of Egbe. And now it came time for us to go to school. Well, there was a missionary school about 500 miles away from this town of Egbe, where other missionaries would send their kids to school. So a lot of American, Canadian, British, Australian missionary teachers there to American standards. Well, it was a 2.5-day drive in a Land Rover or a 3-hour flight in a little 6-seater mission aircraft. So they built a grass runway by the hospital, and sure enough, a little mission airplane would come and pick us up, and right from grade 1, take us off to boarding school. So we'd be away from our parents for 4 or 5 months,
Oh, wow.
right from grade 1, and then come back home for our summer vacation, and then come back home for our Christmas vacation.
Yeah, can I pause you there? Because
Sure.
I already have so many questions. Your parents, um, one is American, one is Canadian.
That's correct. My mom was American, my dad Canadian.
Okay, and they met where?
Yeah, another fascinating story that God was in the middle of, and as teenagers, they met at a Christian camp. My father, a lifeguard, and my mother, a cook, and together, they fell in love as teenagers and decided they wanted to be lifelong missionaries. And they both had this feeling of going to medicine. My mom went to Wheaton College in south of Chicago, and then my father went to University of Toronto for medicine. When my mom finished Wheaton, she came up and joined my dad in Toronto to do the nursing and midwifery. So now, as medical missionaries, they then joined a mission called SIM out of Toronto in Canada and Charlotte in the United States. And they were the sending mission, and a church also just outside of Toronto was the sending church that then, of course, supported financially my parents to be missionaries.
Wow, that's incredible. And so they moved to Nigeria.
Mhm.
You're born in Nigeria.
Correct.
What was the experience like of being raised in that culture? Obviously, you were also going off to boarding school,
Yeah.
which gave you exposure to many different cultures amongst your colleagues, amongst your teachers, but there was a strong Nigerian influence, I can only imagine.
Very much so. It was tough going off to boarding school because, I had to leave my BB guns and my bicycles and my slingshots behind
No fun.
as we went off to boarding school, which was quite strict within a compound, 200 missionary kids, grades 1 to 12, all in this, one boarding school. And, we looked forward so much to coming home. Our parents were very, very, I would say lenient. We knew the values that we were taught, but then really given the leeway to adventure and enjoy the surroundings
Mhm.
with a lot of the villagers. So I spent a lot of time in the village playing soccer and playing ping pong and then hunting with some of the hunters around
Oh,
there for
really?
like antelope and guinea fowl and partridge and so forth.
And what would you hunt with?
Um, my father actually had a 22 rifle and a small shotgun. So, the, Nigerians that I would hunt with actually had homemade guns,
Oh,
which was like the old things you see in the movie where you put the gunpowder in and then you put the bullets in, and it was like one shot, and then you would have, 3 minutes or so to reload it
yeah,
again,
yeah.
so.
They were probably excited that you brought more advanced tools.
Right, right.
Uh,
And of course, we were pretty I was pretty young while I was out there, we're talking like 14, 15 years old.
yeah.
And then I also loved motorcycles, so I would do, in those early years, a lot of motorcycling around Nigeria, going from, like, one mission station to the other, and the reason you do that is because your friends from school would be on these different mission stations throughout Nigeria.
And you got to see so much because of that.
Very much so, yeah. But, just really saw it as an adventure growing up in such an exciting, wonderful place, but not all missionary kids saw it that way.
Mhm.
Some missionaries just felt they were isolated, and when they were sent off to boarding school, that was, very, very cruel. The idea that they were, on their own away from parents and so forth, but, very fortunate. I saw it much more as an adventure and, um, uh, wow, what can we build today? And, what friend could I have at school that I could invite to the mission station and we could build something together or a motorcycle together. And I loved more the building, construction, mechanical side than I did the medical side.
Mhm.
So my sisters kind of hung out more, with the new babies that were born in the maternity or help counting pills in the pharmacy or something like that, where I would hang out more with a missionary construction person that was building homes and building extension to the hospital and keeping the water system going and so forth. So almost like a farmer's kid where you kind of get to know a lot about a lot of different subjects.
Yeah. Do you speak any of the local languages?
No, greetings and understand somewhat. It's Yoruba and the dialect is Yagba, a very tonal language. It's a very tough language to learn. And Nigeria was a British colony at one time. So in school, they're really trying to teach them English, of course,
Mhm.
of which today most people do speak English, except for out in the away from the far from the cities. Um, and so it's an excuse, but many of them were practicing their English as
Mm.
opposed to me being forced to learn Yoruba,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
So I'm from Brazil. I don't know if you
No,
knew that.
no, I did
Yeah, my
not.
parents immigrated to Atlanta, Georgia when I was 6 months old.
Oh,
And I
oh.
was raised across Brazil, Mexico, and the United States. My dad took a job in Mexico City for some time too. So raised across multiple cultures.
So do you speak Portuguese and
In
Spanish
Spanish, I
and
do.
English?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow,
It's a
good for you.
blessing.
Yeah.
A huge blessing. I can't say that I ever had to try to learn the languages because I was exposed to all three by the age of 7.
Yes. Way to go.
Yeah, no, it's a huge blessing. I honestly can't take credit for it.
Yeah.
And Brazil has a massive African influence because the slave trade that took place over many, many years, over 50% of the population in Brazil is of African descent.
Hmm.
And so there's, bits and pieces of different African cultures that we see embedded in Brazilian culture. And I don't know if you've ever heard of capoeira. It's a Brazilian martial art, a dance fight.
No.
Interesting. So it originated in Brazil by enslaved Africans and eventually African Brazilians as they mixed as a form of defense to be able to train their bodies and hide it in a dance. And beyond just
Hmm.
having kind of like this dance fight element to it, there's also music, rituals. We all stand in a circle, we clap, sing songs, and there's several instruments that we play along with this practice of this martial art.
Yeah.
And one of the instruments, it's called the berimbau, and it's an arched bow with a gorge, a
Hmm.
hollowed out gorge in a, like the wire that you can pull out of tires.
Yep.
We
Yep.
pull out one of those wires from the tires and we string it
Right.
um, to tension the instrument. And I, because I've been training this martial art for over 15 years, and we learn a lot about its history and perhaps some of the elements of the origins of where certain things came from, right? Because it is Afro-Brazilian. And the instrument, the berimbau, I read that it had a similar there's a similar instrument in Nigeria called the mouth bow. Have you heard of this?
Not by that name, but what you're describing, I've seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So it is the main so the mouth bow, it's essentially like a wooden stick that's
On
arched with
with a
a
gourd.
with a gorge
Right.
exactly. And so we have the exact same thing, but instead we hit it with, I don't know how they played it in Nigeria, but in capoeira, we hit it with a small, um, like a smaller stick and a stone that you press against it to kinda get the sounds out.
Yeah, that I haven't seen.
I almost
Yeah.
actually, I was going to bring one to show you, but I'll show you a video later because I can't grab my phone, we're recording. But, it's just kind of, like, fascinating, this connection.
Yeah, it is.
So you have seen that instrument,
I have. Yeah. Yeah.
and how was it used or
Yeah, I thought it was actually more like a harp or a guitar type thing where they actually pluck the strings, and as you know, Nigerian African people in general are very musical, and
Mhm.
so even just the simplest gourds, the simplest drums, they even take grass plants and make flutes out of them as they're herding their cattle and so on and so forth. It's just amazing how musical they are.
Did you learn any of the musics or any of the chants or anything like that?
No, I wouldn't say that I learned them. Did we dance along with them? Did we clap along with them and stuff? Absolutely.
Kind of inevitable, right?
Right.
The energy is like so strong and contagious.
It is to this day. Even when we have our construction teams at the hospital there, morning devotions. It's like morning devotion starts with 15 minutes of them grabbing wood and pieces of metal, um, uh, buckets that we send out there from Home Depot and all around in a circle. The music and the rhythm and so forth that they have just singing a few songs in their language is pretty amazing.
That's incredible. And I was curious to know, because you grew up, exposed to and embedded in the Nigerian culture, and now you live in the United States, what are some things about Nigerian culture that you really admire and kind of take with you as a person, and that there's like a strong contrast perhaps to the American culture?
Yeah, that really is a pretty complex question because the culture is so different. Because, and I'm not just saying Nigeria and U.S. Remember, we were in the bush in Nigeria, so
Mm.
we're not in a city. We're in 100 miles from any big city, where we're actually rebuilding the hospital right now. But a village with very little material things, with very little money, um, very few possessions. The amount of generosity, of bringing chickens and eggs and pineapples and mangoes as a gift, uh, to show their appreciation. And then the chiefs coming to me and saying, we don't have money to help you buy cement and to rebuild this hospital, but our village has labor and we would love to come and mix cement and help you take a building down or help you clear land
Mm.
free of charge. And then as a community, they would come out with a drum and there'd be drummers. And as they were mixing cement and as they were moving dirt or shoveling, making a ditch or something like that, we'd be chanting and just so joyous
Mm.
that they get to be part of, say, the hospital coming back for their community. So just that simple, um, constant, uh, wanting to show appreciation, and wanting to know that how thankful they are, um, comes so natural. And so now you come over to this country, and it's like it seems like if you're that open or that generous, there must be a hidden agenda,
Correct.
and that's not the case over there at all. It's really feeling that God is favoring them, and they wanna show you that, appreciation. So that was one difference, but I have to say, it also helped in business as it relates to customer service. When you really, really serve a customer because you genuinely care about the customer and the service that you're actually bringing to the business world,
Mm.
is actually um, enhanced by fe feeling that you're serving the person
Yes.
more so than doing a task because that's your job,
Yeah.
So I have to say that there's a huge difference, but that difference actually helped me on the business side.
I love that. And it's also something I talk about this a lot, the importance of your intentions and where your heart is
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
work. And it's not something you can fake.
Right.
It's something you have to truly nurture
Yeah.
into your heart, into your mind. And the way that it's been for me, because there's been moments where I've struggled being generous, where I've struggled serving others. I can't say that it came naturally to me.
Yeah.
But the Lord has worked so much in my life, especially by helping plant Grace Church.
Yeah.
It was just a process of refining me and understanding that everything that I have is of the Lord. It came from Him.
Right.
And because I have His blessing and, His favor over my life, I have the privilege of being as generous as possible with those around me and serving those around me. And I work upon the Lord. Like I work for the Lord. I work not for others, but my pursuit of excellence is because I work for Him.
Yeah, good for you. Because I look at work as a form of giving back for the talents that God gave us. And at the same token, we had nothing to do it with our birth at all. That was the miracle of the Lord letting us come into this world. So how we live our life and how we use those gifts that He gave us is a small way of giving back and showing that thanksgiving.
Mm.
And like you said, even every breath is a gift. So being able to use those talents to be able to do whatever task is at hand with a mindset of excellence is honoring and praising the Lord.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're I want to jump back into your story.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're flying out to boarding school multiple times a year in these really cool little planes,
Right.
which as a young boy was probably such an adventure.
Right.
What did that spark in you?
Well, as you take off in the airplane, you know, f- little kids would be crying because they're seeing their parents crying as you're leaving them now for 3 or 4 months. So as we'd lift off, oftentimes the pilot might take a pencil and put it in his hand and then push the yoke forward and go weightless, and the pencil starts floating. Well, that would take the tears away real quick,
Yeah.
and kind of bring some excitement. And slowly us little kids might fall asleep or something like that. So that was um, kind of a first impression of how neat aviation was, but also how efficient, the fact that you could be there in 3 hours instead of 2.5 days. But then again, the mechanical side, I love construction, I love mechanics, I love how things work, putting in the generators and the pumps and the piping and everything that the missionary construction people and mechanics were doing, and me kind of traipsing around behind them. Well, the idea that, mechanically, an airplane is flying right from an early age was like,
Mhm.
wow, this is great. But unlike a generator that may fail because you haven't looked after it and so on and so forth, it's like an airplanes can't fail. So I love that side of it too, and probably from my parents' upbringing, bringing us up around medicine,
Mm.
there's a lot of similarities between aviation and the operating room.
Mm.
Is that, you have to do things right, you have to
Yeah.
plan ahead, you have to keep a lot of things in mind.
Not a lot of room for error.
Yeah, exactly, and I like that, so
Mm.
I think right from a small age, that had a lot to do with starting to form my mind that, I'd like to pursue some angle, some way in aviation.
Mm. And then?
Yeah, well, growing up, in Nigeria with that kind of in the back of my mind, shall I say, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I finished high school.
Mm.
So World Vision at that time was working in the country of Niger, which is just north of Nigeria on the southern border of the Sahara Desert. So they were looking for help in driving a Unimog, which is a big German-made um, four-wheel drive truck up into the Sahara Desert to deliver grain because they were having a pretty bad famine at that time. Um, and I said, well, while I'm deciding exactly what I want to do, why don't I do this for a year or so? So
Mhm.
I went up to Niger, and it was really quite intriguing, driving over the sand to these oases, then delivering the grain. And that's where I then decided it's like, if I love motorcycles and I've motorcycled all around and stuff, so why don't I take this Honda 175, put jerry cans on the side of it, for gasoline, and then another jerry can for water, and consider driving from Egby, from going back and visiting Egby for the last time, in my mind, and then go all the way to London, sell the motorcycle, and go on to Canada for training. Because of this time I had said, well, why don't I go through pilot school and then perhaps aircraft maintenance school, to see that where that leads.
Hmm.
And so that it was kind of there where I really decided, well, let's pursue a career and see if that's really the direction I want to go.
So you kind of casually went over this, but you crossed the Sahara Desert by motorcycle?
Yeah, yeah. So that at the age of 19,
You've got to tell us more.
yeah, yeah. Um, I wouldn't have done it had I not been driving about 500 miles up into the Sahara in these trucks and stuff, and kind of getting to know the Sahara
Mm.
and the do's and don'ts, shall I say? So it wasn't like it was just a quick idea and let's do this, because it is about more than 1,000 miles of sand, where the only road is a 55-gallon drum, with a pole in the middle every 5 kilometers. So if there's a dust storm or something like that, all the tracks and so forth are covered over. And those days we didn't have GPSs, we didn't have cell phones and so forth. So
Did you have a compass?
sure, had a compass, but at the same token, 5 kilometers, what's that? That's about 3 miles.
Hmm.
So it's not too far before you're starting to look for that next drum,
Got it.
and you were leaving your tracks. So if you didn't kind of see that drum, well, you could backtrack and then maybe come slightly off to a different side,
Hmm.
because the last thing you want to do is get lost
Oof.
in the desert. But it was about 450, 500 miles between Oasis, and I had about 600 miles of range, because I had like 15 miles or 15 gallons of gas, and it was a small motorcycle, 10 gallons of water. And I did have to wait out a sandstorm for like a day and a half, where it's almost like a blizzard, where you really can't see anywhere. So you don't proceed, you just stay by your bike.
And you
And
cover yourself, or how do you
no, I actually
manage through that?
had a snowmobile suit, which, covers your whole body, and even, can put your hood on too. So, as far as that goes, that wasn't really an issue. Um, and between that and a sleeping bag at night, in the desert, it got down to 28 degrees at night, which was just
Wow.
slightly below freezing.
Yeah.
So I would have water on, ice on my water, and then in the daytime, it would get up to around 125, around 125 degrees. But as you'd have to kind of run along beside the bike sometimes too, and jump on the bike,
Mhm. For it to
uh,
pick up?
to get like almost like you're water skiing,
Yeah.
on top of the sand.
Yeah. Is the sand pretty packed, or is it kinda soft?
In a probably about 5 to 600 miles, it's soft.
Oof.
Yeah, yeah, and then as you're getting closer to Algeria, it would get, um, more packed, and
Mhm.
then actually more kind of rocky. But then you would and then you start to have a road, and in that road, you'd have this, what we call washboard, when you're going on a dirt road and it's kinda
Mhm.
guttering like that because there's peaks along there. Well, that washboard was like 6 inches deep,
Oof.
so you had to be going at about 40 miles an hour, otherwise the bike would just rattle apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're going faster, you're kinda like going over the peaks, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you afraid at all of, like, wildlife that you might encounter? I don't know if there's,
Mm.
like, gangs or what
Yeah.
could happen in the desert.
Um, Back then it was fairly safe, although if you did see a caravan of camels going, in the distance, you really wouldn't run over there and say hello and so forth, because, it's just you all
Also,
by
like, pardon
yourself.
my ignorance, I don't know if it would be, like, gangs or if there's, like, another terminology.
Yeah. Um, today, that could very well be the case. In fact,
Mhm.
unfortunately, you don't hear of people crossing, like we used to,
Mm.
and for that reason,
Okay.
just because it's so isolated, if something happened to you, nobody's really gonna look for you, nor are they gonna perhaps find you, So, but back then, it really you didn't hear of it. It wasn't such a big deal. As far as the animals go, um, there's just critters out in the desert, scorpions, little snakes, and stuff like that. So what I would do is I would take a string and put it in my gas can, and then where I was going to put my sleeping bag, I would put that string around where I slept. So if a scorpion or snake were to come in that direction, when they would get to that string, it would turn them away. And
Mm.
so I didn't really have any issues like that. And then when I crossed over to Europe and went through Spain, Switzerland, France, that I went from Calais, France, over to Dover, England, then went to London, sold the bike, and then flew to Toronto for um, 4.5 years of pilot training and aviation technical training, and then another year and a half of aircraft maintenance training.
Wow. Okay, so after going to school, is that when you moved to South Florida, or when does Banyan Air Services come to exist?
Yeah. I had a friend that I grew up with, also a missionary kid, that was like 3 or 4 years older than myself, and he was an American guy that came to Miami to live and, was in aviation. So he was a flight instructor, back when I started to go to school in Toronto, and so since my parents were still serving in Nigeria and, um, didn't really know my relatives very well,
Mm.
um I would, for spring break and for Christmas and so forth, come down to Fort Lauderdale. And John was my friend here in Miami, and so John would say, "Oh, come on down." And the fact that you're, of course, in aviation school there, and I'm a flight instructor at Opelika, um, we can hang out together, and so I would come down, spend that time with John, and I saw, wow, there's more airplanes here in, Florida, perhaps maybe between West Palm Beach and Miami than there is in all of Canada. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, as soon as I finish school, I'd really like to move down to Fort Lauderdale and
Mm.
see what the future has."
Mm. And then when you moved here.
Yeah, when I moved here, I transferred my flying licenses from Canadian,
Mhm.
to US,
Okay.
and, quickly got a job flying small airplanes to the Bahamas, like, 8 passenger, 10 passenger, airplanes, and, as I was flying back and forth to the Bahamas, uh, I would run into other pilots and so forth that were working for small little charter outfits like I was, and, many of them were the owners of those charter outfits because a lot of
Mm.
pilots like to own a little 2 or 3 airplane charter company that allows them to keep flying, and, those owners really, had their built-in flying job, shall you say.
Mhm.
So, the issue that those owners were having was, uh, to have the FAA standards of maintenance for a commercial charter company, they were pretty stringent, and to hire a full-time director of maintenance was almost unaffordable if you
Mhm.
only had 2 little airplanes.
Right.
So, you have kind of a part-time to director, and that guy might not be available. So, what happened was I said, if I started a little company, um, where we looked after charter companies that had, like, 3 or less airplanes, and I became their solution for maintenance, maybe that could be a real viable business. And so I went to the owner of the company I was flying for as a contract pilot, and he said, "Oh, it's one of my biggest challenges is trying to, not miss charter flights because of maintenance, but at the same time, so expensive to have a full-time mechanic when I don't need a full-time mechanic." And I said, "Well, could I do it?" And they said, "I got nothing to lose. Please do." Well, that worked out great. He was thrilled. I was working on his 3 airplanes, And then I went to a couple other companies that had, like, say, just 2 airplanes, and they said, "Sure, we'll give it a try."
Wow.
But what our little and then I hired 1 or 2 other young, technicians, and I know what our difference was when I would go to the customer to ask if I could have their business, I would tell them that, we were gonna be like firemen. So, you could call us at 10 o'clock Sunday night because you just discovered you had a flat tire or you discovered your battery was dead, and you have a 6 o'clock charter flight to the Bahamas, and you're gonna miss that charter, and someone's gonna answer the phone. We had beepers at that time,
Hmm.
and they're gonna be enthusiastic and probably buy your airplane in 15 minutes,
That's great.
and we're gonna start working on it, and they said, "Oh, yeah, right." Well, sure enough, that spread like wildfire. Before you know it, other charter operators were talking among themselves saying, "There's this, like, couple young guys in
Yep.
this hangar over there that are amazing."
That's
And
great.
they meet the, FAA, specs, and our planes seem to be fixed and so forth. So it was, many of the projects were, like, over our head, so I quickly found other more experienced technicians that I could subcontract, you know? So even when the customer would come, "Hey, could you do this inspection?" or, "Would you be able to knock out this repair?" I'd say, "Oh, sure." But we didn't even have capable people within our
You're
own
like,
little
yes, we will
staff.
figure it out.
Exactly, so the little Banyan Air Service, that was the beginning in 1979, so could you believe we're going to the 46th year,
Incredible.
and I was, started this business when I was 25.
So share a little bit with folks listening how like some stats, some numbers on Banyan, like how big you guys are, how many employees, how many flights are taking off of um, from the airport.
Yeah. So, here I am, a, 25-year-old kid, uh renting a hangar, and my friend John, by this time, was selling airplanes. So he would have the customers' airplanes at various hangars. He was paying rent for those hangars. So it was like, "Hey, John, why don't you move your customer's airplane to this hangar
Mm.
and pay rent for, like, say, 3 spots, and I'll use 1 spot for maintenance.
Right.
And then when you sell that airplane, maybe I'll have 2 spots, and
Mm.
then when you sell that, 3 spots kind of thing, and this would be the beginning of Little Banyan Air. So it was kind of a win-win. It did no skin off his back. He had to have the plane in a hangar somewhere, and it didn't matter really where, but in the hangar would offset the expenses. So that was from the beginning, which we outgrew that hangar, in about 2 years, and, then went to, the next larger hangar. And then 1985, um, was an opportunity now where a hangar developer, uh, by the name of Jerry Holland, was starting to build some hangars at Executive Airport, and I came to him and said, uh, I'd really like to run the enterprise or the group of hangars that you're building, fill them up with tenants and, pump fuel in addition to me already serving maintenance. So he asked me if I had, any experience in, running a fixed base operation for aircraft, and I said, "No," and, just for on the maintenance side. "Do you have any money?" "No." And it's like, again, I felt that, I know the Lord was in this and opened that door,
Yeah.
and he said, "Yeah, I'll rent it to you, but, I've lost a lot of money with, previous tenants and so forth, so I'm gonna put, like, a price tag on not just the rent, but, a big, uh, number that I've lost that I'd like to slowly get back because I'm giving you the rights to pump fuel, to fill my hangars, and you didn't put any money into
You got
building
to
these
pay a
buildings."
premium.
Yeah, so you gotta
Hmm.
pay a premium, yeah. So we had the place completely full in 6 months,
Wow.
and so that was the beginning of an incredible relationship where Jerry would say, "Hey, what do I need to build next?"
Yeah.
And now I knew the customers pretty well and so forth, so here we ended up at Executive Airport, Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, which is where I started Banyan and where I met Jerry, and we had that first fixed base operation. So what happened is we started buying our neighbors at Executive Airport, which happens to be like the third busiest non-airline airport in America. Well,
Wow.
little did I know that at 25 years of age. I just thought, wow, what a neat place. It's pretty busy here.
It's incredible how God placed you in, like, just the right
Exactly.
place. Like, you just see his provision and wisdom and strategy,
Yeah.
and all these little details that you could have never calculated just by yourself.
And then a trust with a builder that was going to ask me what my thoughts was if we were to acquire this next lease and this next lease, what should I build on that land? And so I actually was able to acquire like 4 of my neighbors over the years,
Mm,
and then Jerry would come along on that property, because it's all leased land for the
mhm,
city of Fort Lauderdale,
mm,
at an airport.
mhm.
And then he would come along and together we would go to the city and say, well, if Banyan acquired the assets of this company on this leasehold here, and we have the plans to build such and such, could we have then a long-term 30-year lease? And so we've done that 4 times at Executive Airport, and now, with Holland Builders, having built all these hangars and so forth, what I did is now with so many hangars, Banyan offers maintenance and fuel and hangarage and electronics upgrades, and we have a pilot shop, we have a restaurant,
Mhm.
we have aircraft sales, but we don't do air ambulance, and we don't do a flight school, and we don't do charter and, aerial photography and so forth. So it's like, well, let's go out and find tenants that do those things, and then we can go to the industry and say, "Come to the Banyan complex, and there's more services in one location than perhaps anywhere else in the world."
Yeah,
So here we are with
like
a
a
hun
one-stop shop.
exactly. So here we are with 110 acres and about 1.2 million square feet now of hangars and, offices, with about 600 airplanes based within our complex and 200 teammates, Banyan teammates, and really have been chosen for years in the top 5 in the nation, serving corporate aviation. We call our business a fixed base operation, which is kind of a military term for an aviation company that's serving non-airlines, the general aviation aircraft. But primarily our focus is those in general aviation that are using their aircraft for corporate,
Right,
like
right.
the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the
Can I ask you a
IBMs.
super superficial question?
Sure.
Do you see a lot of famous people?
Yeah, we do actually, Messi flies in and out of, our place
Oh,
because
cool.
we've, right in that stadium right
Yeah.
beside us there. Oh, yeah, the CEOs of, Fortune 500 companies, our senators, our governor, they all use aircraft as a tool. Um, you know, people think it's all just, rich people flying around and so forth. No, it's a big part of business, a big
Mhm.
part of getting ahead where you can have your marketing people or your legal people or your HR, go to 2 cities, have meetings in those cities and be home for supper.
Yeah, and honestly, flying with, like, mainstream, airlines and
Airlines.
going to the massive airports, it is, overall, like, obviously, there's some airlines that are more focused on hospitality, that makes a huge difference,
Yeah.
but overall, the experience of flying, going through security, all of those aspects to me is just, like, horrible, and I flew once, on a private jet, because my husband works in yachting.
Oh, neat.
He works for Freddie Group America,
Yeah, yeah,
and so, I go with him to different cities sometimes when he's traveling because I'm a business owner, I have my own business, I can,
yeah.
and on one of those trips, one of his clients said, "Hey, like, I'm flying back to South Florida, do you wanna come with me on my jet?" And we said, "Sure, why not?" And so we flew back in to South Florida, and just the process of being able to go through a private airport is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's essentially like getting an Uber, It's just,
Yeah.
like, that easy, that simple. You're not, like, scanning luggage. It's just such a dream.
Yeah. A real time saver. And uh, nowadays, they have internet, they have phones, so, like, from takeoff to landing. In fact, our company installs a lot of those things. We call it, the Office in the Sky package,
Mm.
where they can be productive from takeoff to landing, have a 2-hour meeting, go to another city, productive on the way to that city, another 2 or 3-hour meeting, and home, no hotel bills, no
Yeah,
rental cars, so
yeah.
it really, um, is, a huge advantage for companies that have multiple locations.
I hope to get there one day
Yeah.
to be a client at Banyan
Well,
Air
we got room.
Services. I was also gonna ask you, oh, yeah, you talked about generosity being one of the key elements that you carry with you from Nigeria,
Yeah.
and that has greatly impacted the business. Can you share a little bit more about how that shows up, at Banyan?
Yeah, generosity from the way the Nigerians, the villagers and so forth, show their appreciation, but I also have to give a lot of credit to my parents.
Mm,
The the number of people that they sponsored through school, first of all, high school and then perhaps a Nigerian university, uh, was just amazing. Several of them actually became ambassadors of Nigeria to foreign countries. Um, Many of them became business people in Nigeria that then gave back to different ministries and
mhm,
so forth. So they were a great example of missionaries that had very little to give, but what they did give had such a huge impact.
mm.
And so that generosity, um, has been kind of instilled in myself and my 3 sisters, and, uh, coming to Banyan now, being very involved in the rebuilding of the mission station that my parents started, but also very involved in the community, um, has just, been a privilege, really, because I really feel that so much of our success at Banyan, has come from the Lord, which
Mhm,
enables us to be even that much more generous,
mm.
than I ever dreamt us being, um, possible.
Yeah. At what point during, your career and as an entrepreneur at Banyan, did you realize that it was your calling professionally as a man of God wasn't gonna be just air services?
Yeah. Um, I I love to work, I love to build things, and, building our business consumed me. But my wife had heard so much about Egby at the dining room table, and I really thought my Egby days, my Africa days were over when I left on a motorcycle 20 plus years ago before 2008 when I I decided to take my wife over to, Nigeria so that, a lot of the puzzle could be put together, and now she could see where we grew up and so on and so forth. When we arrived there, no running water, there hadn't been any missionaries for 10 years,
Wow.
the hospital was about ready to close, and, that didn't actually bother me too much. A lot of the people I grew up with were still there, so my wife was, like, quite, mesmerized by, "How do all these people know you?" Well, I grew up with them, and they were my playmates and friends, and many of them had become chiefs in the surrounding villages, and so it was a pretty amazing time. The house I grew up in was still there, um, and in that time, the village had really come to me, throughout that week and a half or so, just saying, is there any way you could go back to America and tell them about what this hospital used to do,
Mm.
and how many of us had our babies here and had operations here, and we had a snake bite, and we would have never lived if the hospital wasn't here, and it was like, oh, I guess I could maybe tell some people at our church or something, but I'm not a medical person. I'm consumed in my business.
I'm
So
a busy man.
yeah, yeah. So coming back to the States, and back into our busy lives, it really, um, it, my wife was thrilled to have seen that and so forth. But uh, in Fort Lauderdale, there's a um, a group that was called Life Work Leadership,
Mhm.
and it's really about, have you really discovered your purpose in life? Are you using the gifts that God gave you?
Mm.
Have you taken time to really reflect on what's going to bring you the most, um, for the life that you've been given? And various speakers, that from big companies like Walmart and Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby, and that very successful business people, but it was Christ-centered, and there was this, real theme of calling and using those talents and so forth. And I think it was at that time, the timing was perfect because I joined Life Work Leadership in 2008. It was 2008 when I took my wife to
Oh,
shore
wow.
where I grew up, and, it was all of a sudden, it's like, my wife and I, it's like, I wonder if we really could rebuild that mission station. I don't know how. There's no talent, construction people there. There's no tools. There's no stores. I don't know how that would be possible.
Mm.
And we said, you know, well, Lord, if you could use us, we're absolutely willing. But I don't really know where to start.
So was this, like, just, like, a tug on your heart? Was it a recurring thought? Like, how did it become, like, a conviction? Like, this is
Yeah.
what we really need to do? Because you went to Egby, you saw that it was dwindling, you were like, "That's life. It's,
Yeah.
that's too bad,
Yeah.
going back to my busy life," and all of a sudden, these thoughts that were completely contrary to what you had initially,
Yeah.
perceived
Yeah.
are now driving different decisions.
Yeah, I can't say it was a vision. I can't say it was like a small, still voice in the middle of the night, but I can say it was a strong enough reoccurring thought that it's like, well, let me investigate this.
Mm,
So
that's good.
where should I start? And it would be, well, the mission that my parents served still had missionaries in Nigeria, nowhere around Egby, but I called them up in Charlotte, and I said, "Hey, this mission station that my parents served at and other SIM missionaries served there, it's falling apart. This hospital is closing, and there's nobody serving the people." And they said, "Well, we're a field-driven missionaries. It's a mission, not a headquarters mission. So missionaries on the ground, if they need to build a building or do something, expand their ministry, well, they'll put that request in, and we'll help them raise support and stuff like that. But in Charlotte here, we don't make decisions that, oh, we're going to rebuild that. There's no missionary there or anything."
Mm,
And I said, "Well, that's a shame because it was had such huge impact
mm,
spiritually, and physically."
mhm,
And, and they said, "Well, you're not a missionary even, you're a missionary kid, and you're a business person in South Florida, so how would you ever presume to do this?" And I said, "Well, I, don't know, but, I would assume by getting a missionary, couple to go out there as a construction, um, and then I could start supporting them. Our company would then be an extension of what they needed and so forth."
mhm.
And I said, "Well, we don't really do that." And so I said to them, and I don't know why I said this, I said, "Well, would you put that in writing that, you were the founding mission and so forth, that you really aren't going to put any resources or thought
Yeah.
towards that in writing?" And they said, Oh, I'm not sure we feel comfortable about that. So it really came down to they sent a representative with me to Egby, and I put a little 5-year plan together as it related to buildings and water supply and the real need for that. And when that representative came back, this was like, well, Dunn seems to be a business person and seems to have the steps all in
A plan?
a
He's
plan and stuff,
serious?
So they said, "Well, we present it to our board." And, we kind of challenged the Lord, shall I say, in the sense where, "Okay, we'll present it to the SIM board," and this is completely out of their model and completely out of what they typically do. And the board said, "Yeah, yeah, let's call Don an associate SIM missionary living in Florida that, we'll let him use our 501(c)(3) to be able to, raise funds and so forth through a nonprofit, and, we'll start looking to recruit missionaries." And it was like, almost like a flashing red light or a yellow light just saying, "Okay, that it sounds like the Lord has done something that this mission's never even done before."
Right.
And it's like, wow, what a sign.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
And so you guys rebuilt this over the past many years, right? Starting in 2010, the Egby Medical Complex.
right,
It's a 50-acre complex,
right,
90 buildings, 30,000 patients served per year,
right.
120 nurses graduating from the nursing school per year, 350 Nigerians employed. It is 6,000 miles over water to get donations from Port Everglades to Port Lagos. Is
Mm.
that right?
Yep,
And you guys have sent 36 containers.
39 now,
39, and I'm sure those containers are not small.
40 footers, shipping containers.
You've put even some cars in there, I believe.
Yep, and backhoes and tractors and
Well, first of all, I cannot even begin to imagine the impact that this has had over the years in a community that is so remote, right? I saw that for every 2.5 million people in rural Nigeria, there's one surgeon available
right,
to support. And so you guys are essentially bringing back health and access to well-being to the Nigerian community, the rural Nigerian community.
right, right. Yeah, it actually became too big for SIM that the Lord put on our heart, "Let's, have our own 501(c)(3),
Mm,
and we call it Egby Medical Mission.
mhm.
So, 3 years ago, we formed Egby Medical Mission because for sustainability, for a succession plan, it's like, well, let's form a little
Yeah.
mission here into the future with an executive director, a donor relations person, administrators, because, we had no idea that those figures that you just said were in store, and now we're making a huge impact in that whole region and graduating 100 nurses and training 6 Nigerian family medicine doctors. So we've actually, had over 30 over the years, 30 Nigerian doctors get their family medicine license because they've done their 4 years of residency,
Mhm.
at the hospital, and now they've gone out basically being the hands and feet of Jesus throughout, Nigeria. So that impact, is not slowing down, and the idea, being in aviation and so forth, was how do we bring the love of Christ to a very rural location, but have a higher standard of education and compassionate medical care? Um, how do we do that remotely? And the answer is through technology. And being a Starlink dealer at Banyan, installing Starlink and Wi-Fi and stuff in corporate aircraft, every week, um, we applied for Starlink. It wasn't even in that part of Africa yet, but we put our application in.
Mhm.
So sure enough, a year and a half ago, we got Starlink.
That's incredible.
Yep. So now, Oh my goodness, we're able to do their accounting for them. We Zoom with them all the time. Banyan is the technical arm when a generator stops working, when a vehicle stops working, when an incubator or an operating light stops working. They they call our building grounds and maintenance. We Zoom with a camera on the issue to walk them through how to repair that. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is our pathology uh, samples are being looked at in Indiana, looked at in Cameroon. Um, uh, our We're able to mentor the staff there. Telemedicine, virtual training is all just slowly coming into place.
Hmm.
And right now we're putting in a 1,700 panel solar farm to give us 24-hour power
Oh, that's great.
because we're only able to financially run our diesel generators about 9 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, "Oh boy, this is just, uh, such a privilege," you know?
Yeah, I feel like we read a book at church called The Pursuit of Holiness by Jerry Bridges.
Mm.
Like, there's just kind of like a key turned when I read that book, and I thought to myself, the biggest adventure, because I'm super adventurous, like, I completely relate to
Good for
so
you.
much of the feelings that drive you, um, because I'm so adventurous and I pursue those things. I thought to myself, there is no greater adventure than walking with the Lord and being used by him, and that's what I want.
Nor any safer place, you know, when you're in a place where
Mm.
there is kidnapping and there is armed robbery and there is but if you feel like you're 100% in the will of the Lord, um, and you, of course, use common sense and uh, keep your wits about you. We are just forging ahead, um, bringing such an impact to this area of Nigeria, and I feel the best is yet to come
Wow.
with the solar coming in. One other real neat aspect is Mission Aviation Fellowship, a Christian organization in Idaho that specializes in serving missionaries through aviation again, has decided to open Nigeria. So they're already in 12 countries
That's great.
around the world with about 50, 60 airplanes. So they're now going to bring a nine-seater to Nigeria, and we'll be landing on that very same strip as a kid, but
Wow.
we'll be able to bring volunteers now from Lagos or from Abuja, straight into the mission station. Instead of the 8-hour drive, it's gonna be a 1-hour flight. So between a surgery center that we're building so we can train Nigerian surgeons, like we are the family medicine side, aviation coming, the solar coming, all integrated with Wi-Fi and so forth, we're gonna have a standard of education, a standard of medicine, that's just really unheard of
State of the art.
in a remote area, 100 miles from any big city.
Yeah.
And I wanna give a lot of credit to, Samaritan's Purse,
Mhm.
an organization out of Boone, North Carolina, that does amazing things all over the world, medically, construction-wise, and so forth. But they do it in the name of Jesus, helping people in the name of Jesus, and have brought so much good. Well, they have been a huge help to us, volunteer-wise, surgical teams. We just had a orthopedic surgeon team where we go out to all the surrounding villages, looking for patients, and, in the 2 weeks they were there, did, like, 80 major operations.
Wow.
Just, an incredible organization that just, were able to leverage their generosity, through business principles and through, um our team at Banyan.
Yeah.
I've taken about 12 of our teammates as well to
Mhm.
Nigeria.
Mhm.
So our company is fully engaged, shall you say.
Mhm. Yeah,
And we actually have a corporate chaplain at our business.
that's right.
And a corporate chaplain is not about pushing religion into the company. It's about looking for our teammates above and beyond HR.
Hmm.
So, marital problem, money problems, wayward teenager issue. They can call a very well-trained chaplain, that's from Chaplains of America is the name of the company out of
Hmm.
Carolinas. Well, these guys could really um, help with solutions, pray with the teammates and so forth, and it was really voted as one of our top benefits
Yeah, that's
from being
incredible.
kind of very skeptical at the beginning to being,
Mm.
wow, this, especially if he's done a funeral of one of the spouses of
Mhm.
our teammates and so forth, kind of done that journey, very, very confidential, but at the same
Yeah.
token, asking permission from the teammate. I'll do this journey with you if your family would like me to,
Yeah.
and they invite him to, and everybody's blessed.
That's incredible. I know that you guys have had some massive obstacles to be able to reach Nigeria in this way with the resources. God has provided people. I mean, I feel like there's probably dozens, if not hundreds of stories that we could probably dive into on the Lord's provision. But one that I think would be really cool for us to talk about is, could you share a little bit of why it's so complex to bring donations into Nigeria, and how has God worked through that?
Yeah. In fact, um, there's the financial donations, but there's also a lot of gift in kind. The gift in kind being medical equipment, vehicles, and so forth that uh, people in North America have donated. And so, how do you get that to Nigeria? Well, at first, everybody told me, there's no way. You know, too much corruption, too much red tape, and so on and so forth. So, really, um, the best way that came to my mind was start at the top. Go see the controller of immigration for visas and so forth, controller of immigration for the country, not just a region. Go see the head of customs. Go to the governor of the state where the hospital was. Go to Washington and meet the Nigerian ambassador to Washington. Go to Ottawa and meet the high commissioner from Nigeria to Canada. And again, the Lord opened all those doors with appointments. And when I would have the appointment, I would tell them what we're doing, that I grew up there, how it would impact that region. And then it's like, well, what do you want from us? And, oh, I just want you to be informed, and I want you to really tell me, give me any advice. So you don't really need anything, or you're not in trouble. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, not at all. I'm just here out of respect that we're taking on something that is very, very difficult, but at the same token, want you to know about it. Oh, here's my private phone number. Any issues that you might have, just please call me.
Mm.
So here we are, 39 40-foot containers later with medical equipment and anesthesia machines, incubators, you name it. And the reason we like to pack those, and they're all quality goods, is because we take the serial number and the model number of everything we put in there. So if it fails, we're able to then help them troubleshoot, find parts, call biomeds to help us with medical equipment, um, uh, distributors, and so forth. Well, these the leaders of Nigeria, have given us so much, help, and so even when we come through the airport, we're almost treated like diplomats, our bags are full of goods and so forth, and they just stamp our passports and wave us through, and it's because the people at the top have said, "We've checked out what they're doing, and, what they're doing is incredible for our country and our people. Um, Treat them accordingly."
Wasn't there someone, in the government that when you went to go speak to them, they, like, were born in Agby Hospital, or do you remember
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, there used to be also a mission high school across the road where missionaries were the teachers, and we're talking really, excelling in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Mm.
And many of the people uh, credit that mission discipline, the values, and so forth that they learned there, that when they went to Nigerian university, they almost went in as a second or third year student because they knew had learned so much in the high school there, and they'd go down the hall when I'd come into, say, the controller of immigration. He'd go down the hall and say, uh, we have somebody from Egby, and you went to Ticcombe College at Egby. He'd run down the hall and kind of give that testimony. That's how you say. So yeah, there was so much interwound. There were people when I say it was a Christian hospital, would say it was a missionary that led me to the Lord. It was a missionary that shared the gospel with me, and I've been able to grow in my career or in my political position, government position, as a strong Christian, making a big difference.
Mm.
So many of those little ties would come about at the highest levels.
Mm.
And some of them would be so intrigued that with their armed military, like a little parade, they'd have soldiers in front of them, soldiers behind them, and then they'd be in their little SUV.
Yeah.
They'd do that 8-hour drive to come take a look at the hospital, and they'd be so impressed. They go back to their in this case, the immigration,
Yeah.
and say, "Oh yeah, these guys are really for real. They're doing what they're saying they're doing," and so treat them accordingly. And it's been, just miraculous how that's worked, but it takes a lot of discipline.
Mhm.
Government people change. Right now, I'm trying to get, waivers on some of our, future containers. When you start setting lithium batteries and so forth, hazmat, at the same time
Mhm.
expensive. Those containers have high value. Well, I don't wanna pay duty on them coming in, they're not for
Mm.
resale and so forth.
Right.
So, again, starting at the top, uh, people change and so forth, so it does take a lot of energy, a lot of research, a lot of discipline
Mhm.
to, to start there, but, um, nothing good comes easy,
Yeah.
and with the Lord behind you, huge things can be accomplished, and they have been.
I'd like to ask you a question about your spiritual life.
Yeah.
How has prayer been a part of your journey and your decision making as a entrepreneur?
Yep. What a privilege that God invites us, the creator of the universe, the creator of our own lives, invites us to come to him in prayer. And again, seeing the missionaries with malaria and Ebola and all of these diseases and poisonous snakes and so forth. But through prayer and through serving the Lord as missionaries, set such a great example for the power of prayer.
Mm.
In fact, I'm glad you even asked that question because before we started the project of rebuilding Egby Hospital, we went to all of the Christian churches in the surrounding villages, and we said, "You've asked how you could help. You've asked how you could be a part of the revitalization of this hospital that once was so crucial in your region. Well, we ask you to pray." And to this day, since 2010, if you go to this church in the middle of the village, you'll find at 4:30 in the morning about 150 people there to pray about the success of the revitalization.
Wow.
So here we are 14 years later or so, 15 years, and that's just one church, but other churches just in their normal services and stuff, and of course, many individuals. Then we went to all the living missionaries that had ever served at Egby and asked them to pray. So here we are 15 years later. More than 500 volunteers have come to Egby. Never a snake bite, scorpion bite, never a road accident on the 8.5 hours of travel on pretty dangerous roads. And
Unpaved
oh,
dirt, mud
yeah,
roads.
yeah. And so we're really, when you talk about the power of prayer, um, that's what's sustained us, and that's what the Lord has given us incredible favor because of that. Then you could come over to Banyan. What's a missionary kid doing, buying properties, building businesses, building the business, taking all these risks and stuff like that? Well, it's really exciting because w- when you when you feel you have the ability to build that, but you don't know how, you can go to the Lord in prayer
Yes.
and just say, Give me the wisdom, open that door.
Mm.
I'm going to go see the airport manager. Or I'm going to go see the owner of that property whose lease is almost up. Um, he'll probably get offers from a bunch of other people or so forth. But if this is really meant to be, uh, we really need that property. How can we, um, uh, join that to our property in order to make our business stronger, so that we can be more generous, and so we can make even a bigger impact in the industry.
Mhm.
And the Lord has answered those prayers.
Yeah. I have I like writing Bible verses around my house. Like I have a Bible verse in the kitchen, I have one in the office, I have one in my bedroom, and just like different things that I'm meditating on. And there's this verse that says, the Lord will instruct you, he will counsel you, and he will guide you in the way that you should go. And I often look
Yeah.
up at that verse and I'm comforted to know that the Lord will guide me, that He will counsel me. He will show me the path that He has for me, even in my business,
Yeah.
And so it's such a comfort to have God as a part of your team, like truly.
Yeah. In fact, another verse along that
Yeah,
line
please.
is Proverbs 3:6. In everything you do, put God first, and he will direct you and crown your efforts with success.
Amen.
And that is what we should strive for,
Yeah.
because I could tell you, um, right from the beginning of Banyan, um, it hasn't always been me focusing on the Lord. There was quite a few years where I kind of drifted away from following the Lord, took on several partners
Mhm.
that we didn't have the same values. They had different agendas and so on and so forth. So that was probably one of the hardest parts of building the business, was as a young person taking on older people, giving them shares in the company,
Mm.
thinking that, well, since they're older and they have lots of advice and they have more experience, so they're going to have more access to customers, they're going to have more solutions. I'm really going to be able to build my business quicker. Well, that wasn't the case, because the values weren't the same, because
Mhm.
the goals weren't the same, the vision wasn't the same, and so a tough part of the business was of slowly buying the partners out.
Yeah.
And so when I finally accomplished, buying that last partner out, it was like, okay, Lord, um, these are our new values. Number one is we're going to honor God in all we do,
Mm.
and we're going to inspire trust by being trustworthy, and we're
Mm.
going to build this business on trust and teamwork, and
Mm.
work in our business in order to make us make a impact, not only on the industry in pursuit of excellence, but also those that come to work with us, expand their careers, help us make them better parents, help
Mhm.
us make them better people in the community
Yeah.
by the disciplines and what we can learn building a business together.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely so solid. So I have a couple of wrap up questions. And also if there's anything like you want to talk about that you haven't covered yet,
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me know. Is there anything that you want to pull in that you had in mind?
Yeah, I just had written a few notes, that, I love some, just short little snippets, like,
Yeah, let's do it.
at Banyan, it's about working together, growing together so that we can win together.
Mm.
And when you start dissecting, what does working together mean, and what does growing together, and what does winning, y y you know, try to have your team more focused when they come to work on accomplishing the vision of the company than just coming and accomplishing their job.
Right.
It's like we have the privilege of helping that Learjet take that organ from Miami to Houston to save a life. as opposed to changing a tire, you know?
Yeah,
It's a much
it's
bigger
perspective.
perspective, exactly.
Mhm.
Um,
It's good.
another thing is, at Egby and at Banyan,
Mhm.
it's like I love the saying, the quality of our work is the platform of our witness.
Absolutely.
So, when you're doing it with excellence, not only are you honoring God because you're using the skills that He's given you, but you're raising eyebrows as to how are they accomplishing that, which gives you then an opportunity to share what God has done in your business or in your life.
Yes.
And so when we send stuff to Egby in these containers, operating tables, surgery lights, suction machines, oxygenators, it's not leftovers. It's quality.
Mm,
And
it's good.
when we're incorporating technology, it's the latest technology. And that has attracted the government when they come to do certification of our School of Nursing and the school of and the hospital itself. They they say, "Oh, this is American magic. I've just entered an oasis of little America in the middle of the bush. What's going on here?"
Wow.
And then you get to tell them, "Well, the Lord has given this.
Yeah,
The donors are behind us. We're connected around the world through this
it's incredible.
technology." Well, tell me more. Tell me more. And then when you start talking about leadership is not position and title, it's action and example.
Mhm.
And even the creator of the universe came to earth um, to be born as a human and giving his life for our redemption. Uh, to be a leader in charge of 200 people, not only is that a privilege, but how do I serve the team in order for them to do a better job? And how do I serve a customer in a way that differentiates us from other businesses?
Mm.
So it's really looking at the whole person as opposed to just after how much money can I make off this customer or how much can I get out of this employee, which we call
Mhm.
teammates as
Mhm.
opposed to employees. So I said earlier, I have to connect our people with the vision of not just coming to work, but to join the dream of how do we become the best at what we do.
Mm.
Um, and then a funny one, money doesn't make you happy, but everybody wants to find out for themselves. you know, and so the reason that I love making money is because we can then give more away.
Yeah.
And at the same time, have a healthy business where we can continue to invest in our team.
And there's so many biblical principles around money, for us to anchor our decisions. You know, the Lord calls us to be generous, that giving is better than receiving, that with the same measure we give, we will also receive. There's great goodness in giving.
Yeah.
And what I've experienced is that as I give more, I see the Lord giving me more as well.
Amen.
And I don't only mean financially. I just, in all areas of my life, I feel more blessed and I feel more
Peace of mind.
fulfilled, more peaceful,
Yeah.
more joy, the
Right.
joy of giving.
Yep. 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 Another one when you talk about success is God looks for our faithfulness, not our success, or you
Mm.
say. And if you do, want to break down success, I would say it's good health, determination that whether we win or lose, that we've applied the best of ourselves to the task at hand.
Mm.
And when you really go to sleep at night feeling that you really have given your best,
Absolutely.
then I would say you had a very successful day, and so that's the way I look at it.
That was one of my questions, so I'm glad you brought that in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you have another question or?
Um, what's one thing that you hope listeners would take away from your story?
Well, we spent a lot of time talking about growing up in the bush and then building a business and then now rebuilding a whole hospital and a college of nursing. Is that first of all, I want to tell you that God doesn't call the qualified. When he calls you, he makes you qualified. And, you know, here I am building these buildings and finding people and networking to accomplish this and never dreamt that I could do that. So I would really encourage those that hear this story that take time to figure out what your gifts are. And you'll never have just um, a roadmap from start to finish. But if you have just a feeling about the first mile, start going the first mile, and things will start opening up. Especially if your intention is to put the Lord in your heart and put the Lord first.
Yeah.
In fact, the Bible says, those that really seek the Lord, seek His will find Him.
Mm.
And I feel that that's so true, but it's not uh, on again, off again. It's
It's a
a
pursuit.
lifestyle.
It's a
It's a
pursuit.
pursuit. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so I would like to just encourage people um, to do things that they didn't feel was possible by taking the first step.
Mm.
Don't don't let the "that's not possible" prevent you from taking that first step,
Yeah.
because, I would have never dreamt what's happened thousands of miles away, has taken place,
Yeah.
and it's been so many people have been involved with it.
Yeah, what I like to share with people who at times want to start a company or seen something that I've accomplished and they would like to too, but they hesitate. They wrestle with fear, with self doubt, maybe with depression, anxiety. I tell them, me too. I
You're right.
just, I just did it anyways.
Right.
So it's not that we're any different.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not
That's well
superhuman.
said.
We're not different at all. We just did it carrying all those emotions anyways.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Mm.
Well, this has been a pleasure. We're wrapping up. I knew we were going to be here for a while. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, no, it's just, encouraging people to be the salt and light of their community, to
Yes.
be, um, an extraordinary parent, an extraordinary husband or wife. Um, it doesn't just happen. It takes effort. It takes discipline, but there's so much reward for that discipline.
Yeah.
And uh, uh, share your heart. You're not alone. It's like we've got one life to live, so make the very most of it. And by putting God in the center, uh, your Creator, the one that made you in His image, um, the the um, the outcome and the possibilities are beyond your wildest dream. And uh, I could tell you that firsthand. The people that we serve are the movers and shakers of the economy
Mm.
at Banyan, and then here we are serving the farmers and the herdsmen that have never seen what we take for granted over here,
Mm.
and yet enjoy life, enjoy nature, but in that poverty, um, uh, still are equal human beings with so much generosity, so much joy, and kind of sometimes living in both those worlds has taught me so many lessons. And at the same time, I often get kind of confused as to how can the world be so different,
Yeah.
just a 24-hour flight away.
Yeah, it's
But
incredible.
it's out there for each of us to experience if you'll go for it.
That's great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Now, for folks listening that maybe want to learn more about Banyan, either as a
Oh, yeah.
maybe a potential client, maybe somebody who's interested in working at Banyan, and the same for Egby for people interested maybe in supporting, learning more, getting involved. Can you share just some ways that they can get in touch with you guys, be it a website or whatever you think's best?
Yeah, yeah, thank you for asking that question. Yeah, Banyan Air Service is at Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, and we love giving tours. Uh, uh,
And it is so worth it. It's an
yeah,
amazing tour. I mean, a
yeah,
fascinating place.
yeah, because aviation is an exciting industry, and we're in all aspects of taking the airplane apart and putting it back together and testing them, and we're also the Honda Jet sales and service center for the Southeast. A lot of people didn't even know that Honda built airplanes. They do in Greensboro, really a neat little jet. So BanyanAir.com. Um, you'll find us on the social media and, of course, on the website. And then love for you to look at the Egby website, and it's egbymedicalmission.org, egbymedicalmission.org. Or you could even just look Egby Hospital, Nigeria on the web. And we have some videos on there. We've got all kinds of opportunities for those that may want to join us on one of the trips to serve, to pray for the ministry, give to the ministry, egbymedicalmission.org.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. This has been really special and just a privilege to be able to sit down. I'm encouraged, honestly, by your story and can't
Yeah.
wait to see what else the Lord will do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Julia. It's been unique, and I don't like to talk so much about myself, so this has been kind of new for me as well.
Yeah, thanks for making an exception.
Yep.
All
Thanks.
right, thanks everyone for listening.
Yep.
Bye-bye. That was another episode of Founder Tactics. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get updates on new episodes, live recordings, and everything happening in our founder community, make sure to subscribe, follow, and rate the podcast. And also, you can head to foundertactics.com to learn more about our work. See you next time.